Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Moyo and today I will be showing you how I cut and sew this jumpsuit. If you're interested, please make sure to watch to the end and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials like this. I will start by cutting on a brown paper because I'm using a crepe fabric and crepe fabrics can be unstable. I'm going to start by drafting my trouser pattern. I will be taking my crotch measurement. Now for my crotch, I use 15 inches and I'm a size 8. If you want yours to be loose like mine, then use 15 inches. But if you want your crotch to be a little more firm, then use 14 inches. I'm going to connect the lines and label it my crotch. On my crotch line, I'm going to take my round hip and divide it by 4. Now my original round hip is 39, but because I want it to be a little loose, I'm going to add 1 inch to make it 40. Now if I divide 40 by 4, I'm going to get 10 inches. So I'm going to come over to the waistline, which is the top of the paper, and I'm going to mark 10 inches. Then I'm also going to add 1 inch for seam allowance. That makes it 11. I'm also going to mark 11 inches on my crotch area as well. I'm going to connect these two lines that we have just made. Then I'm going to take my flap. Now to get my flap, I'm going to divide 10 inches, that's my round hip, by 4, and I'm going to get 2.5. So I'm just going to mark 2.5 on that extension from this new line that we just have. As you can see, it's taking my entire paper, so I'm just going to go ahead and label that my flap. Now it's time to draw our crotch curve, and to draw my crotch curve, I'm just going to come up by 1 inch and also to the side by 1 inch as well. Then I'm going to connect this and make a C curve. I'm going to come to the top of my paper and label it my waist. Now it's time to take our round waist measurement. My round waist is 27 and I will divide that by 4 to get 6.75. Then I'm just going to mark that, and then I'm also going to add 1 inch for seam allowance. From the top of my paper, my waist area, I'm going to mark 11 inches for my waist to hip. Remember that this is a jumpsuit. For my trousers, I can use 9 inches, but because this is a jumpsuit, that is why I'm using 11 inches. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to use my pattern master to connect the points to form my hip line, my hip curve. I'm going to label this my front pattern, and now it's time to cut. So now when I'm cutting, I'm only going to cut the crotch area like you can see, and I'm also going to cut my hip curve area. I want to get the full length of my jumpsuit, and my shoulder to waist is 15.5, so I'm going to place 15 inches on my waistline, assuming that half inch is for allowance. So from that 15 inches, I'm now going to measure the entire length of my jumpsuit. Mind you, if your full length is say 56, then you want to mark at least extra 4 inches or extra 5 inches. Just always add extra, because a jumping jumpsuit is not nice. It's not going to look fine. It has to be longer than your actual length. Just in case you are wondering how wide the bottom of my pants is, what I have on my crotch area is the exact same thing that I have to the hemline of my pants. So it's just like a straight leg pants. So when you wear it, it's going to be really free. We're done cutting the front, and now it's time to cut the back. So I'm just going to place the front pattern on a fresh paper that is at least 3 inches wider than what I used on my front. Then I'm going to secure my paper with tapes. Then, like I always do to my pants, if I've watched my pants tutorial, I'm going to add 2 inches from the crotch area and also on the flap area, just like you can see me do. So I extended my line using a ruler. The extension is 2 inches as well. Once I draw that straight line, I'm still going to continue adding 2 inches on the area of my flap, like you guys can see. Then once I'm done with that, I'm going to draw a straight line. Don't forget to use your curved ruler to draw your crotch curve, and also If your paper is not long enough at the base of your back pattern, make sure you add some paper to it. Then I'm going to come over to the crotch for the back, and I'm going to be adding 1 inch for my zipper allowance, so that it is easy for me when I'm attaching my zipper. I'm going to draw a straight line, and I'm just going to connect it to the crotch area. So I labeled this part my zipper area. Then it's time to cut. So I'm just going to cut the lines that we have just made, and once we are done with our back and our front pattern, I'm just going to separate the two patterns that we have. Now it's time to cut on the fabric. The fabric I'm going to be using is this crepe fabric, and it's plain, but it has some kind of design on it. You guys cannot really see clearly, and it's not light, it is somehow thick. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut off camera because my table is small. So this is the result. Now I'm going to come over to the front pattern. I labeled both of them front and back. And I'm going to come over to the waist of the front, and I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and I'm just going to connect it to any comfortable points on my waistline. Then I will cut using my scissors. The essence of this is because the back is always bigger than the front, so for it to balance well. Now I'm done with the trouser part of my jumpsuit, and now it's time to cut the upper bodice. So this paper that I have here is for my back and my front, and for the first one I folded in 1.5 inch allowance for the zipper area, and then for the other one I folded in 5 inches. That's going to serve as my overlap allowance. I'm just going to pin them together so that they don't move when I'm making my markings. I'm going to be taking my shoulder to chest line, which is 7.5 plus 1.5 inches, so that is 9. I'm going to take 9 inches on both sides. Next, I'm going to be taking my shoulder to under bust. I'm going to be subtracting 2 inches for my shoulder to waist. My shoulder to waist is 15.5 to get 13.5. Then I'm also going to be adding 1 inch for allowance on the shoulder and on the under bust line. I'm going to get 14.5, so I mark that on both sides of my paper, and then I'm going to connect using this ruler that you guys can see right here. Once I'm done, I'm going to label that my under bust and my chest line. My back measurement divided by 2 is 7.5, so I'm going to take that on the top of my paper, which is my shoulder line, and I'm also going to take that on my chest line. Then I'm going to connect using a ruler. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to draw my armhole curve. I'm going to come over to the point that we have on fold. I'm going to take 3.5 inches. Then I'm going to come down and take 2 inches, like you can see. Then on the other side as well, I'm going to take 2 inches. Once we are done with this, we're going to connect our points, and I'm going to use the curved part of my ruler to make a small curve. I'm going to take my round bust divided by 4, and that will give me 8.75. So I'm just going to mark that. Then I'm going to come over to my under bust. I'm going to buy my under bust divided by 4, that is 7.5, and I'm going to mark that as well. Then on my under bust, I'm adding 0.5. We're going to use that later on. Then once I'm done, I'm going to connect my points. Then I'm going to still add 1.5 for my seam allowance. Then I'm also going to connect the points. I'm going to come over to the shoulder line, and I'm going to be taking 1 inch down, like you can see. Then I'm going to connect that to the neckline that we already have. Once we are done with this, it's time to cut. Remember that when we marked our chest line, it was 9 inches, and we already subtracted 1 inch for our shoulder slope. So what is left is 8 inches. So I'm just going to divide 8 inches by 2, and I'm going to get 4 inches. Now on that point, I'm going to come in by 0.5, like you can see. Then I'm just going to connect the point. But when you are doing this, you want to do it on the front part, which is the 5-inch fold that we have. And I'm going to separate the front from the back. Then I'm going to cut the points that we just made. I'm going to cut it out. So I labeled my front and my back, and I'm going to open up my front, like you can see. Then from the shoulder line, I'm going to mark 6 inches. That's how much deep I want my neckline to be. If you want yours to be deeper, you can use 7.5, you can use 8, whatever you like, but I'm using 6 here. So I mark that straight line. Then I'm going to be using my ruler to make a straight line, like you can see. I'm going to be cutting this out, and I'm going to come over to my under bust line, and I'm going to come up by 0.75. Then I'm also going to connect it on any comfortable point, and I'm going to cut. So I labeled my front and my back, and this is what I have. So when I'm cutting my back, I'm going to open it up like that. So I cut off camera, and this is what we have. I also cut facing for both the front and the back. You can use bias to tape it round, but I want it to really look neat. That's why I used. So using the facing that I cut, I turned both my front and my back, and this is what I have. Also, when you're done turning, make sure to iron properly. Iron with a steam iron. That's how your project is going to come out looking really nice. So this is what I have, the front and the back. So initially when we were drafting our pattern, we used 5 inches for our overlap, and now I've gone ahead to sew in my facing. So what is left is 4.5. So I just marked 4.5 from the beginning of that extension, like you can see. So I marked on both sides of the fabric, and I'm going to notch. Once I'm done notching, I'm going to place them together. So both notch, I'm going to make sure that they align properly, and then I'm going to use my pin to hold them together. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to grab my back part. And for this back part, remember I told you when we were drafting the pattern that we're drafting shoulder to under bust. So now we need shoulder to waist, and we subtracted 2 inches. So I'm going to cut another fabric which is like 3 inches, and this is going to serve as my band. So the essence of this band is so that my top part of my jumpsuit is long enough to my waist. For my front band, I used 7.5, which is my under bust, plus 1.5 inches, making it 9. Then I'm going to notch the mid part of my band. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to mark my bust point to bust point, which is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Then I'm going to notch that area and just a little cut. Then I'm going to notch it properly so that it is visible. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to grab the front that we already joined together, and I'm going to align them. I use the pin to attach my band to the top, and when I lay it properly, I'm going to have this 0.5 inch left, and that's fine. So I'm just going to pleat the material, the one that I already have. I'm going to pleat it on the bust point area that we marked on our band. Once I'm done, I'm using a pin to pin the pleats that I just made, and I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same step for the other side as well. Once I'm done, I'm going to pin it again using my pin. Then if I turn it to the other side, this is what I have, and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew it. Once I'm done sewing, this is what I have, and I'm just going to iron. I ironed it properly both on the right and on the wrong side because I want it laying nice and flat. Then I'm going to grab the back part of my jumpsuit, and I already joined the band as well, and I also ironed properly. I opened the seam to iron. Just makes your sewing look very neat. Okay, then I'm going to match the right side of the back to the right side of the other side. I'm going to fold together like this. Then I'm going to come over to the waistline, and I'm going to come in by 1 inch. This is to prevent any bulge that we might have on our jumpsuit. I'm going to just connect it to any comfortable points on my top, like you can see. Then I'm going to use my scissors to cut this out. Now that I'm done, I'm going to use my pins to match the two pieces that we have together so that they don't move. Then remember the original allowance that we had in the back pattern. I'm going to be taking 1.5 from the neckline to the waistline. Then I'm going to connect it, and I'm going to go ahead and sew with loose stitches on the machine. Once I'm done sewing, I'm going to open it up, and when I open it up, this is what I have. I also ensure to iron the opening that I made. Then I'm going to place the front on the back, like you can see. Then it's time to turn the shoulder. Now to turn my shoulder, I'm not just going to sew it like that. I'm going to use what I have on the back to turn the front. So just look at what I'm doing because I don't know how to explain it better. Then I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew it. Once I'm done, I am going to open it up, and this is what I have. Now it's time to shape our front piece, and I'm going to place my tape on the front part, like you can see. And I'm going to take the measurement that I can see there. I can see 20 inches. So this 20 inches, I'm going to place it on the back again. Then what I'm actually going for is 35, so I'm going to place my chalk on 35 inches, and what is left is 6.5. So I'm going to divide what I have by 4, and that is my allowance for each side of my top part. Then for the waist as well, I'm going to repeat the same thing. What I have on my waist is 17, so I'm going to place 17 on the front as well. Then what I'm going for is 27, so if I mark that 27 inch, I'm going to measure what is left, and what I have left is 7 inches. So I'm going to divide 7 inches by 4. Whatever I get is going to be my allowance on my waist area, so I'm going to just go ahead and mark that on my waist area and connect it to what I already have on my bust area, and I'm just going to make a straight line. Then whatever I have on that side is what I'm going to be using on the other side as well. So I'm just going to turn my fabric over, and I'm going to go over to the sewing machine and sew with a straight line. Now it's time to sew the pant of my jumpsuit, and I just went ahead to insert that in the pant. Then I also sewed the crotch area, and I added the allowance for the zip. So the length of my dart is 5 inches, just in case you are wondering. Then the front is dartless, there is no dart on the front, so I'm just going to place the front on the back of my trouser, like you can see. So when you're sewing, make sure that you place right side to right side, and then I'm going to go ahead and join the crotch area first. So if you need a detailed tutorial on how I make my jumpsuit or how I make my trouser, I'm going to have that linked below, so make sure to check it out. Now it's time to shape my trouser, and I'm going to measure what I have on the front, then place what I have on the front on the back, just the way we did for the top. Then I'm going for 27, so I'm going to mark 27, and I'm going to take the remaining allowance that I have there. What I have is 6 inches, so I'm going to divide 6 inches by 4, and that will be 1.5 that will be left. So I'm going to use that for both sides. Then on the hip, I want the hip to be as free as possible, so I'm just going to be taking a little allowance, which is like 0.75. so I'm just going to mark that. I'm going to connect my waist to my hip area. Once I'm done connecting, I'm going to align the front and the back properly, like you can see. I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew straight down. So I'm done sewing the trouser part of my jumpsuit, and when I turn it to the other side, this is what I have. I absolutely love it. Then I'm going to grab the top part of the jumpsuit, and I'm going to match the midpoint of the front with the midpoint of the back. To get the midpoint of the front is really simple. Just align it properly, and then you notch it. So I went ahead to open up the zipper area, and then I'm going to align the front area that we have just notched. We're going to align with the midpoint on our trouser. Then we'll go over to the sewing machine and sew it round. So you can use your pins to join the front so that it doesn't miss. So also on the waist area, just cut it a little bit, like you can see, so that your sewing is not pulling your allowance. Does that make sense? So this is not compulsory, but it just works every single time. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew on the sewing machine. You're just going to sew it round, like you can see. I'm done sewing, and I turned it to the right side, and this is what I have. Absolutely beautiful. Then I also attached invisible zipper to the back, because this is crepe, and all those big zips, they don't really look fine, so I used an invisible zipper. Very nice and very neat. Now it's time to cut our sleeve. To cut my sleeve, I'm going to match my selvage hem together, and I'm going to fold it into 2 at first. Once I'm done doing that, I'm going to fold it into 2 again, making the total fold into 4. I'm going to be cutting the shape of my armhole, and once I'm done cutting, I'm going to trim the excess off. Now that I've trimmed the excess off, I'm going to come over to the top part of my sleeve, and I'm going to use only 2 pieces. I'm going to trim off about ½ inch from the 2 pieces that we can see. So the part that we're trimming off is going to serve as the front part of our sleeve, and we're going to be connecting this notch. We're going to be notching it, and this notch is going to serve as the front part of our sleeve. Also, for the length of my sleeve, I needed about 22, but I cut about 25, so you need to always cut more than what you need. And then the base of your sleeve should also be wider, very, very wide, in short. So I'm just trimming off the excess, and once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and attach this to my main jumpsuit, and this is the result, guys. I absolutely love it. Then for the base of my sleeve, I also went ahead to fold it in, and I added elastic band, and this is the result of my jumpsuit. Very beautiful. I really hope this helped you guys. When you are done sewing, don't forget to hem the base of your jumpsuit. As you can see, I hemmed mine using 1.5 inch, and I absolutely love the outcome. And guys, this is the finished result of our jumpsuit. Don't you just love this? I love it. In fact, somebody even placed an order for it the day I wore it. Like, it is that fine. So make sure you try this tutorial, and if you end up trying it, please make sure to tag me or send me pictures on Instagram. I would love to see your creations. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in my next one. Bye guys.